stupidities, and ramblings. Being God-forsaken is nothing that has a rational pattern. Rather, Allah guides whom He wills to the straight path. Thus, comprehend that anyone who says contrary to what Ahlul Sunnah says will inevitably contradict himself. So you never want to make a mistake. We're going to make mistakes, most likely, but you're going to try your best to always be correct. There's nothing wrong with that. Allah says, وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. It means say a correct statement. One would say to you, you always want to be correct. You say to a person, what's wrong with you? How did you find that something bad? Anyone who says something contrary to what Ahlul Sunnah says will inevitably contradict himself. So learn right belief, pure belief, correct belief, and then try your best always to be correct when you speak about anything. And know that some fallacies are weaker than others. Some fallacy means it might look like it's true, but it's false. Or an argument for a mistake. A fallacy would be an argument for a mistake. Some of those arguments for mistakes, to prove mistakes, are weaker than others. Or an elaboration on a mistake. A person would be elaborating on a blunder. So sometimes those are weaker than others. That statement itself implies that some are stronger than others. Meaning more dangerous, has more potential to misguide people. And also know that not every attempt to say something actually produces a coherent meaning. All of that is introduction for what we're going to read now. As the title says, Stupidities and Ramblings. Let's take a look here. Sophistry or sophistry. I'm not sure if one of those has a correct pronunciation, if that's a long O or a short O, or both are correct. Know that before the Islamic Empire, there was a pathetic school of philosophers called sophists. They were reality deniers. They said everything is not real. Nothing is real. It's all imagination. What made them a pathetic school is that it's a very weak creed. Very weak creed. All the other schools of philosophers used to crush these guys. That denial of reality is against God's saying, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. Therein, He confirmed His own existence and the existence of His creation. وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذْ وُقِفُوا عَلَى رَبِّهِمْ قَالَ أَلَيْسَ هَذَا بِالْحَقِّ قَالُوا بَلَى وَرَبِّنَا قَالَ فَذُوقُوا الْعَذَابَ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْفُرُونَ. And if you saw when they are detained for being judged and scolded by their Lord, you would see something astonishing, O Muhammad. The angels convey to them on Judgment Day. God says, is this not real? They say, indeed it is by our Lord. He says, then taste the torture for the blasphemy you were committing. The scholar said, they are refuted by being beaten and having their money confiscated. If they complain, it will be said to them, worry not, it is not real. Yani, according to you. I knew one person in college. He said, I believe that things are not real. So I said to him, what if I punch you right in your face now? And then he was shocked. And Allah knows, maybe he abandoned that creed right there. And that guy was way bigger than me too. But I just did that. And inshallah was beneficial. In our day are some deviants who deny that humanity is limited to two genders. They say there are countless genders, and one can choose his own gender. Very stupid, and they're so serious. Another ancient group is the Sumaniyah, who used to deny inference and deduction. Yani, they used to believe that nobody can prove anybody else wrong. That is rejection of the sound advice in the Quran. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أُعِظُكُمْ بِوَاحِدَةٍ أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ مَثْنَى وَفُرَادَى ثُمَّ تَتَفَكَّرُوا. Say, O Muhammad, I only advise you to do one thing, that you would get up for the sake of Allah, 2 by 2, or as individuals, and then think about the veracity of what is being presented to you. In this nation are some who took the way of these irrational groups. Amongst the stupidest of heresies is denying the will of the slave, because it is a stubborn refusal of what is known intuitively. Yani, any person knows the difference between beating of his heart and the movement of his hand. They do not even have anyone left to defend their position. Yani, it's a dead madhab amongst the people who claim Islam. This way is a dead way. There's no one even defending it. What's left is just that they're mentioned in the books like this. Close to that is some talk of Bakr. Bakr, he's known from the book here, who he is. We'll come back to talk about him. What did he say? That the babies in the cradle do not experience any pain whatsoever, even if burned or cut with scissors, despite their crying and making noise and shouting. Amongst Jahil's ignorant statements is that the slaves do nothing but will. All they do is will. They have no other action. They don't do anything else. They just will. That's all. That's stupid. According to that, no slave ever prayed, performed Hajj, stole, or did anything else. Because he didn't pray. He willed. He didn't make Hajj. He willed. So that's the meaning of his statement. No one did anything but will. That's a stupid belief. An absurdity on this level is what Ma'mar used to say about the reality of the human not being the form that we see, but truly only something about this form that is knowledgeable, powerful, choosing and controlling, neither moving, still, nor colored. It is invisible, tasteless, odorless, undetectable by senses, and not in one place or another. He says that's the human. That's the reality of the human. No one would say something like this, but someone who describes man as God. The dim-wittedness is in implying that no one in the world has ever seen anyone else. That's what that statement means. According to that, the companions never saw the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And a person never saw himself, and he never saw his parents, and he has never been seen by anyone else. Anyone who believes like that would not be smart. Contradictory statements. At-Tumani, the Murji'i, used to say that had any obligation that is counted as part of faith, according to him, been neglected, then the neglector committed a major sin, but he's not called a major sinner. That might make you scratch your head there. Like when we were first learning this book and we were coming across statements like this, we would be so confused. We'd say, what does he mean? Don't try to figure it out there. It's rubbish. He used to say that had any obligation that is counted as part of faith been neglected, then the neglector committed a major sin. But he's not called a major sinner. And Jahm used to say Allah's speech is created and that it is not permitted to call him a speaker by his speech. He used to say that Allah's speech is created and it's not permissible to call him a speaker by his speech. Don't try to figure that out. First of all, to say his speech is created, that's kufr. But according to him, if his speech is created, it means he has a speech. So if he has a speech, then he's a speaker. So how is it not permissible to call him a speaker by his speech? So this is all twisted and weird. Becker has some talk even further than that of the Khawarij. He said, anyone who committed a major sin is a devil-worshipping hypocrite, even if he is one of the people of the Qibla. And he will be in the lowest levels of hell with the hypocrites forever and ever. But he's still a believing Muslim. How did he arrive at something like that? So this Becker, remember when we were going over the creeds, the sects in general, we were just listing them. And then when we got to Becker, we didn't mention anything there. And I said, because his sayings are so scattered. So these are the types of things he's saying. Something that, I didn't personally find a way to quantify them. Ja'far ibn Harb had similar absurd contradictions. He used to say that anyone unable to do something really had the power to act, but was not capable of performing it. Let that one soak in. He used to say anyone unable to do something, really he had the power to act, but he was not capable of performing it. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So in his own mind, that makes sense. And people are like that. You might meet someone like that. You might know someone like that. That's why when you have a conversation with some people, you can't always keep talking to them. Sometimes you need to stop. They're not thinking well. That's like saying that someone knows about something without being aware of it. He also said that some of a whole is different from the whole. This would mean that the whole is other than itself because every part of that whole, according to him, is something else. And amongst the idiots are the literalists, the deniers of alternative interpretation, those who say ta'wil is haram. Some say that Allah is over his throne, yet surrounding everything, and yet closer than the neck of your ridden animal, all at the same time, etc. For example, Ibn Taymiyyah said, he is above the Arsh, and he descends down to the sky, but the Arsh is never devoid of him. In another quote, he said that God descends from the Arsh, and the Arsh does not become above him. Similar to that is his saying, Ibn Taymiyyah that is, he said, the Exalted said, nothing is whatsoever like him. Thereby, he was exalted from comparison. And then he said that he is the hearer and the seer, and thus he was compared. Ibn Taymiyyah said, this is the greatest verse revealed concerning God's exaltation from comparison, and despite that, it was not devoid of comparing him to others. Amongst Al-Iskafi's fables is that he says that Allah Ta'ala spoke to his slave, but it is not valid that he be called a mutakallim, a speaker. How does he validate speaking to someone without being a speaker? If he invalidates mutakallim, the Arabic word, because of its pattern, mutakallim with that ta there, mutakallim, then he also invalidates that Allah is al-mutakabbir. It's one of his 99 names though, and it's in the Quran. So he has no reason and no evidence to deny that Allah is mutakallim, speaker. Amongst the ancient religions are philosophers who believed in Hayal. They call it in Arabic hayula, a supposed eternal, formless, unstable, primordial matter. They're basically saying there's something eternal. It doesn't have any form or anything. They're saying there's something eternal that's not like anything, but it's always changing and fluctuating. That right there, that's impossible. Our religion taught us that the eternal doesn't change. So they believe that there was some eternal stuff that has no form, and it's always changing and fluctuating. They said that the world's origin is eternal, which is the Hayal, and its qualities fluctuate. So from here, you get the belief of people who say energy cannot be created or destroyed. And they say also, this is the same madhab, they say, the meaning of what they say is, this world is eternal. And all the material in it is eternal. It's just basically what we see around us. It's just recycled stuff that's already been existing. So the table, for example, that I'm using for my laptop, they're saying, yeah, your table, it's not eternal, the table itself, but its material is. It was previously existing in some form or another. Some ancient philosophers said the world has a beginningless maker. That part's true. They said, and that the made world is also beginningless like its maker. That part is ludicrous. They said that the created world is beginningless like its maker. In other words, they said there's two types of eternity or eternality. They said there's two types of eternality. They said there's an independent eternality and a dependent eternality. Though they might say it not like I'm saying it, because I haven't studied their words. So they might have their own words they say. But this is the meaning. So they're saying there's two types of eternal ones or eternality, an independent one and a dependent one. They said the maker of the world, he is independently eternal. And they say, as for the world itself, it is also eternal, but dependently eternal. What do they mean by that? What they're saying is, they're saying, that's because, according to them, Allah is a creator. That's the type of thing he is, according to them. He's a type of thing. The type of thing he is a creator. And then, therefore, they say, his nature, so they say he has a nature. They say, therefore, his nature is that he creates. What they mean is, it's not something that he has a will over. He doesn't have a will or a choice. He does that because that's the type of thing he is. They're saying, it's like the sun. Doesn't the sun give rays of light? Yes, they say. So if the sun were eternal, then its light rays would be, by extension, eternal. They're saying if the sun was independently eternal, then its light rays are, by extension, dependently eternal because the sun would have always been shining. That's what they're saying. They're saying this world, there was always something because there was always a creator who was always creating. So the world is eternal with a dependent eternality. This is very absurd. Very absurd. We say the eternal, number one, is one. It's impossible that the eternal could be more than one, according to the sound mind. And we say that the eternal does not change, because change literally means to exit one state and enter into another. And eternal means having no beginning. So this is very, very absurd. One such philosopher was Proclus, or maybe it's Proclus, or maybe it's another way. So that one that we just talked about now, that's a little bit heavy. But it's good for you to understand that contradiction. Another example of confused, muddled beliefs is Ibn Taymiyyah's deeming the type of creations something eternal, like believing in the eternality of the Arsh's kind, while deeming the attributes of the eternal a type of creation by believing that Allah is a site for events. So it's known about Ibn Taymiyyah that he has the creed of uh, Al-Jinsul Azali. He believed in an eternal kind. You're well aware now, my good brothers and sisters, that what he means by that is that the thing itself, take my table, it's created, that table itself. But before it, there was another table, and before it, there was another table, and before it, there was another table, and there were always tables, for example. Or if you want to use an example, another example, it would say the star. Before that star, there was another star. And before that star, there was another star. Or you might even say, this table itself that's existing right now, this moment, it's not the same table that was existing a moment ago. From here, he'll say, therefore, its kind is eternal. So he believed in the type of creation being eternal, not the created thing itself, not the self of, not the individual creation, rather its kind. He believed in eternal kinds of creations. So understand that well. He believed in eternal kinds of creations. That means he's not saying any individual creation is eternal. But at the same time, he believed that the attributes of the eternal are a type of creation, because he said that Allah speaks when he wants. This, what he said, Allah speaks when he wants, and he's silent when he wants, and he wills when he wants, and he stops willing when he wants. So look how reversed he is. Ramblings. Abu Hashim has an ignorant rambling about God having circumstances. He used to say that someone knowledgeable has a circumstance by which he differs from someone not knowledgeable. And someone powerful has a circumstance by which he differs from someone knowledgeable. And this circumstance is neither something nor nothing, and neither known nor unknown. And someone knowledgeable knows under some circumstance, and someone powerful has power under some circumstance. And the circumstance of the knower is unknown, as well as the circumstance of the powerful, because there is no way to differentiate between the circumstance of someone knowledgeable and someone powerful, since neither's circumstance is known. But how in the world would someone who does not know what he is saying make someone else know what he is saying? So what's this section here now? This subsection, ramblings. Ramblings means going on and on. There's no coherent meaning. At-Tumani, the Murji'i, used to say that faith is what protects you from blasphemy. And faith is a name applicable to many elements. Anyone who abandoned any element of faith blasphemes. And one element of faith is not faith, nor is it some faith. And God knows if this man knows what he means by his own statements. And he used to say that, in an absolute sense, the major sinner is anyone who abandons all elements of faith and denies them completely. Well, what does that mean? Allah knows. These things were confusing us when we first took this book. Trying to understand what they were saying. One of the unique ramblings of the Karramiyah is their differentiating between God's speech and God's saying. They said his speech is not his saying. His kalam is not his qawl. They said that his speech is eternal, but his saying is an event that did not happen. And that it consists of letters and sounds. And that it is merely his power to address and speak. Well, what does that mean? Allahu A'lam. Doesn't mean anything. And who has wits and yet explains speech as power? They're saying his speech is his power. And they said that his speech cannot be heard, but his saying can be heard. Idiocy. Now we're going to look at some things that are just stupid. He said, are these just one-off people believing these statements? Well, every saying is attributed to its sayer. So it might be an individual saying it, and it might be a group who believes it, depending on. Yani, I took care to not mix that when I was translating. So hopefully I didn't make any mistake in there. Every saying is attributed to its sayer. And you should know that sometimes some people follow someone. That doesn't mean that they believe what he said. They might not have known something that he said. Like many Wahhabis don't know that Ibn Taymiyyah said hellfire will come to an end. But they follow Ibn Taymiyyah doesn't mean they believe that hellfire will come to an end. Mughira ibn Sa'id al-Ijli said that God has limbs shaped like the Arabic letters. That's so stupid. Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman al-Qummi said that Allah sits upon the Arsh, although he is more powerful than the angels who carry the Arsh, just as the scrawny legs of a stork carry its heftier body. And one of Abul-Hudhail's scandals is that he said that there shall come a time when there shall no longer be anything under God's power. He said that then, when that happens, God will not have the power to do anything. And when that time comes, the power of the people of paradise will vanish also. And had someone been in paradise reaching for a fruit, he would freeze on the spot. And Allah will not have the power to enable them to do anything. And then the enjoyment of paradise and the torture of hell will stop. It's atheism. Such a claim ruins the hope for reward and the fear of punishment, and dismantles the point of the threat of God and the promise of God. His followers are unable to cover this crooked belief because he documented it in numerous works of his, like his book Al-Hujaj, the arguments, as well as other books of his that lend arguments against the Muslims to atheists. Among Al-Futli's ignorant proclamations is that no woman in paradise would lose her virginity because in paradise there's no pain. This one was so stupid that he did not know that who had the power to create paradise and its bliss has the power to spare the people of the garden from any pain. When the Rawafid Shiites saw Jahil the Mu'tazili writing all sorts of books, including books for every deviant denomination, they said to him, "Write a book for us." He told them, "I do not even know a fallacy of yours that I can manipulate." They told him, "Then show us something to hold on to." He told them, "I do not know any way for you, because whenever you want to say something or make any assertion, you merely say, 'This is what Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq said.'" He said to them, "I do not know anything else that you rely on." So because of their stupidity, they held fast to what Jahil pointed out to them. So whenever they wanted to fabricate a heresy or invent a lie, they would attribute it to that master, Ja'far as-Sadiq, though he is clear of that. Now, this, what we're going to read here, be mindful. Among what exposes the shameful creeds of the Mu'tazila and their disavowing each other, they broke into sects and they deemed each other as kafir, unlike Ahlul Sunnah, who broke into madhabs and still loved each other. Among what exposes the shameful creeds of the Mu'tazila and their disavowing each other is what was cited by historians, that 7 leaders of the Qadaria had a summit, a conference, in which they debated about whether Allah has the power to be unjust or to lie in a way that is special for him. That's their topic. Does Allah have the power to be unjust or the power to lie in a way that is special for him? And they dispersed, all charging each other with blasphemy. It happened that An-Nazam was asked about the issue. He said, and he answered, he does not have such power to be unjust and to lie, because had he had such power, then there would be no safety from his injustice or his lies, whether in the past or the future or anywhere in the world. Yani, he's saying, then we wouldn't be able to trust God. Ali al-Aswari then said to him, according to this reasoning, he would be powerless over what is contrary to what he knew and told. And Nazam said, this is binding. And he's saying, you have a point. What then say you? Al-Aswari said, I say that he is powerless to be unjust or lie. And I say he is powerless over what is different from what he knew. So when they say different from what he knew, for example, if he knew that a kafir, like he knew that Pharaoh would die as a kafir, that's what he knew. So they're asking, did he have the power to make him be a believer since he knew that he would die as a kafir? So does he have power over what is different from what he knows? That's what is the meaning here. And Nazam said to him, what you are saying is blasphemy and atheism. Then Abul-Mudhaffar said to him, what do you say about Pharaoh and everyone else that Allah knew or said would not believe? If you say that it was not in their power to believe, then they would have been accountable to do what they are unable to do, which is something that you don't believe. And if you say that it was within their power to believe, that would be impossible, because that would mean that the slave has the power to render God an ignorant liar. Exalted is Allah from what they say. So they're arguing with each other about kufr, going back and forth in kufr. They said to him, this answer is binding. You have a point. What do you say? Abul-Mudhaffar said, I say he has the power to be unjust and to lie, and he has power over what is different than what he knew. So Abul-Mudhaffar said, I say he has the power to be unjust and to lie, and he has power over what is different than what he knew. So he said to him, so what if he actually was unjust and lied? Then what? So he said, well, that's impossible. It's impossible that he would actually do it. It's possible that he could have the attribute, but it's not possible that he would execute that. So they said, well, anything that's impossible is not a subject of power. So the 3 of them got confused and did not know the proper way to answer. So Bishr ibn al-Mu'tamar said, everything that all of you are saying is jumbled. So they said to him, so what say you? Does he have the power to torture a sinless baby? He said, indeed he has the power to torture a sinless baby. So they said to him, and if he tortured the sinless baby, what would be God's judgment? So he said, at that time, such a baby would be sane, pubescent, and deserving of torture, so that God would be just for torturing him. So they said to him, how would a baby be pubescent? And how would the unjust be just by doing injustice? So he became confused. Imagine a baby coming out with a beard. Maybe some armpit hair. Al-Mirdar said to them, you all have exposed something ugly in my teacher Bishr. However, it is possible that the teacher be mistaken. So Bishr said to him, "What say you?" He said, "I say he has the power to be unjust and to lie. And had he done that, he would be a lying, unjust God." They said to him, "Would anyone with such a description be deserving of thanks and worship? Or would he be dispraised?" He said, "Such a one would not be deserving of thanks and worship." So they said to him, "Anyone undeserving of thanks and worship is not God." So he became confused. Then one of their leaders named Al-Ashaj said, "I say he has the power to be unjust and to lie, but if he was unjust or lied, he would be just and truthful." So Al-Iskafi said, "How would injustice turn into justice, and how would the lie turn into the truth?" So he became confused and said to him, "What say you?" He said, "I say, if he is unjust or he lied, then the minds of the sane people would not be present at that time, and therefore there would be no dispraise or blame attributed to him, because there would be no mind of a sane person existing to object to him." So then Ja'far ibn Harb said, "It is as if he is saying that Allah has the power to be unjust to the crazy people and not the sane people." Thus they all became confused and silent, each believing that what the others said was entirely blasphemy, and it was. When their leadership ended with Al-Jubba'i and his son Abu Hashim, they both said, "This is a case that is not possibly answered." Thus, so they thought they were the clever ones here. But where's their problem? They were satisfied with being ignorant about their conviction. Had the God-given success been with them, they would have held fast to the school of the people of the truth and abandoned going back and forth from one falsehood to another. And look how they did not cite a single verse of the Quran. And amongst the Mustadrika are some who say that anything their opposition says is a lie. That's their creed. Anything their opposition says is a lie. So they set themselves up for failure. So once a Sunni debated with one of them, saying, "You are an intelligent, mature man, born in wedlock." So that one said, "You're a liar." And then the Sunni said to him, "You just told the truth." And then that one didn't know what to say. Once Abul-Hudhail debated with An-Nazam. He said to him, they were debating about the indivisible particle. He said, "If every particle could be split infinitely, then an ant would never be able to traverse a sprout. Like an ant would never be able to walk across a cabbage and get to the other side. If every particle of an object could be split infinitely, it would mean the ant crawling over the cabbage has to cover an infinite amount of particles. So then the ant would never be able to traverse a sprout." So An-Nazam said, "The ant leaps occasionally." So all the people laughed at him. This is how the leap of the ant became a proverb for anyone who said something stupid. Wallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala a'lam.